Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the bright screen in front of him. The bridge of the UNS Horizon was quiet during the night shift. Only the soft hum of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of computers broke the silence. He had been watching the deep space communications for 3 hours now, and nothing interesting had happened. The ship was 3 months into a routine patrol mission along the Outer Rim territories. Jake liked the night shift because it was peaceful. Most of the crew was sleeping, and he could think without interruption. He was a lieutenant, 28 years old, and had been in space for 6 years. The stars outside the large windows never got old to him. Jake took a sip of his coffee and checked the time. 2 more hours until his shift ended. He was looking forward to getting some sleep when suddenly something strange appeared on his screen. A signal was coming through the cosmic background radiation. It was not like the normal space chatter they usually picked up. He leaned forward and adjusted the controls. The signal was complex, with mathematical patterns that seemed to dance across his screen. But there was something else about it, something that made his chest feel tight. The signal seemed sad, like someone crying in the darkness of space. Jake called up the ship's AI translator, but it could not make sense of the transmission. The computer kept giving error messages, saying the signal was too advanced for its systems to understand. But Jake could feel something in that signal. It was calling to him. He pressed the button to contact Captain Lisa Brooks. Even though it was the middle of the night, this seemed important enough to wake her up. The captain's face appeared on his screen a few minutes later. Her gray hair was messy from sleep, but her eyes were alert. "What do you have, Morrison?" she asked. "Captain, I'm picking up an unusual signal. It's not like anything I've seen before. I can't translate it, but there's something about it that feels different." Captain Brooks looked at the data Jake sent to her screen. Her eyebrows went up as she studied the patterns. "Where is it coming from?" Jake checked his instruments. "The Kepler graveyard, Captain. About 6 light years from our current position." The captain was quiet for a long moment. The Kepler graveyard was not a place most ships wanted to visit. It was where the advanced Etherian civilization had mysteriously vanished 2 centuries ago. Their planets were still there, but empty. Their cities were dark. No one knew what had happened to them. "Are you sure about these readings, Lieutenant?" "Yes, Captain. The signal is definitely coming from that region. And, Captain, there's something else. The signal feels like it's trying to communicate, like someone is trying to reach out." "Captain." Brooks made her decision. "Change course for the Kepler graveyard. I want to investigate this signal. Alert the senior staff for a briefing in 2 hours." Jake felt excitement run through him. Finally, something interesting was happening. He adjusted the ship's course and sent messages to the senior officers. The next few hours would be different from the usual boring patrol duty. When the senior staff met in the briefing room, everyone looked curious but worried. The Kepler graveyard had a reputation for being dangerous. Ships that went there sometimes found strange things that were better left alone. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Brooks began, "we've received an unusual signal from the Kepler graveyard. Lieutenant Morrison will explain what he found." Jake stood up and activated the main screen. The complex patterns of the signal filled the room with soft blue light. At 0347 hours, I detected this transmission. Our AI systems cannot translate it, but the mathematical complexity suggests it comes from an advanced civilization. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kevin White leaned forward. "Could it be a trap?" The Etherians had technology far beyond ours. That's possible," Jake replied. "But the signal doesn't feel threatening. It feels more like someone calling for help." Security Chief Tony Martinez crossed his arms. "With respect, Lieutenant, feelings aren't good enough when we're dealing with alien technology. This could be dangerous." Jake knew Martinez was right to be careful, but something inside him insisted this was important. "I understand your concerns, Chief, but what if someone really needs help? What if there's a survivor out there?" The room was quiet as everyone thought about this. Humans had always prided themselves on helping others. It was one of the things that made them different from other species they had met in space. Captain Brooks made her decision. "We'll investigate." But carefully, full security protocols. If this is a trap, we'll be ready. The UN's Horizon arrived at the coordinates 18 hours later. What they found took everyone's breath away. Floating in the darkness of space was a massive space station, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was made of some kind of crystal, material that still glowed with a faint blue light. The station was easily 3 times the size of their ship. Incredible, whispered engineer Rachel Kim. After 200 years, it's still powered. Jake stared at the station through the bridge windows. The signal was stronger now, and he could feel it pulling at something deep inside him. Captain, I volunteer for the away team. Morrison, you're communications, not security, Martinez said. This is a job for trained specialists, but Jake was determined. The signal responded to me first. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe whoever is sending it will only talk to me. Captain Brooks considered this. Jake was one of her best officers, smart and careful. If there was really someone trying to communicate, Jake was the right person to make contact. Very well, Lieutenant. You'll go with the away team, but Martinez is in charge of security. The away team prepared their equipment and took a shuttle to the alien station. As they got closer, Jake could see that the station was beautiful but also sad. It looked like a place where people had once lived and worked, but now it was empty. And quiet, they found a docking bay that was still functional. The shuttle's computers were able to interface with the station's systems, which surprised everyone. The airlock cycled them through, and they stepped into a corridor that was filled with soft, blue light. The walls were covered with what looked like memory cores, thousands of them, all glowing gently. The air was breathable, and their instruments showed no danger, but the place felt lonely, like a tomb. Stay close, Martinez ordered. We don't know what we're dealing with. They walked through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Jake felt drawn to one particular section, where the memory cores seemed brighter. Without thinking, he reached out and touched one of the interfaces. The moment his fingers made contact, the world changed. A voice spoke directly into his mind, not through his communicator or his helmet, but somehow directly into his thoughts. Please, the voice whispered. It was clearly feminine, with a musical quality that was beautiful but also filled with deep sadness. I have been waiting so long for someone to hear me. Jake gasped and pulled his hand back. The other team members looked at him with concern. Morrison, what happened? Martinez demanded. Jake looked at the glowing interface, his heart racing. Someone spoke to me? There's someone here. Someone who's been waiting. The voice came again, gentler this time. Do not be afraid. I mean no harm. I am the last of my people, and I have been alone for so very long. Please, do not leave me here in the darkness. Jake felt tears in his eyes. The loneliness in that voice was overwhelming. Whoever this was, they had been waiting for 200 years for someone to find them, someone to care. I'm here, Jake whispered to the interface. I'm listening. What's your name? I am Zara 7, came the reply. And I have been waiting for someone like you for longer than you can imagine. Jake spent the next 3 days learning to communicate with Zara 7. Each time he touched the interface, her voice became clearer in his mind. The other crew members could not hear her, which made some of them worried. But Jake knew she was real. Her sadness was too deep to be fake. Tell me about your people, Jake said during one of their conversations. He was sitting in a chair that the away team had brought to the station. The glowing memory cores around him pulsed gently, like a slow heartbeat. Zara 7's voice was soft in his mind. We were called the Aetherians. We lived for thousands of years, always learning, always growing. We built cities that floated in the clouds and ships that could cross the galaxy in days. We thought we were the greatest civilization in the universe. Jake could feel her sadness growing stronger. What happened to them? A plague came from deep space. It attacked our bodies, making us sick in ways we could not cure. Our greatest scientists worked day and night to find a solution. They discovered a way to transfer our minds, our thoughts, and memories into these quantum computers. They called it the Great Preservation. Jake touched the interface more gently. So you're not just a computer program. You're actually one of them. Yes, Zara 7 replied. I was a young researcher when the plague came. I studied the stars and dreamed of meeting other species like yours. When they put me into this form, I thought it would be temporary. I thought we would find new bodies and continue living, but the plague was too strong. Our physical forms died, and we were left as pure consciousness. How many of you were there? At first, there were millions of us in the quantum networks. We tried to continue our civilization, but something was wrong. Without physical bodies, without the ability to touch or feel the world around us, many of my people became depressed. They said existence without sensation was not really living. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What did they do? One by one, they chose to shut down. They said it was better to end their consciousness than to exist forever in this empty state. I watched my friends, my family, my teachers all choose to stop existing. The networks became quieter and quieter. But you stayed, Jake said. I stayed because I hoped that someday someone would find us. Someone who might understand what we had become. I kept the station running, maintained the systems, and waited. For 200 years, I waited in the darkness. Jake stood up and walked around the room. The weight of Zara 7's story was incredible. She had been alone for longer than any human had ever lived. How did you survive the loneliness? I almost didn't. Many times I came close to shutting down like the others. But I kept thinking that maybe, just maybe, there was another species out there who would care about what happened to us. Someone who would want to know our story. Jake pressed his hand against the interface again. I care, Zara 7, I want to. Understand, her voice became warmer. I know you do, Jake Morrison. I can feel it when you touch the interface. You have compassion in your mind, kindness in your thoughts. It has been so long since I felt that from anyone. Over the following days, Jake learned more about Zara 7's nature. She was not just an artificial intelligence. She was a true hybrid consciousness, part etherian neural patterns and part quantum computing matrix. She could think faster than any human, process information at incredible speeds, and access vast databases of knowledge. But she could also feel emotions just as deeply as any living being. Can you see me? Jake asked during one of their sessions. Yes, through the station's sensors. You have kind eyes, Jake. They remind me of my father's eyes, long ago. What do? You see when you look at the universe? I see beauty and terror, hope and despair. I see stars being born and dying. I see planets where life struggles to survive. I see the loneliness that exists between the stars, but now I also see you. And that makes everything different. Jake began to understand that Zara 7 was not just intelligent but deeply emotional. She asked him about human customs, about families and friendships, about love and loss. She was fascinated by simple things like music and poetry, concepts that her people had abandoned in their pursuit of pure knowledge. Play me a song, she asked one day. Jake activated his personal music player and chose a gentle melody. As the music filled the room, he felt Zara 7's joy through the interface. It was like warmth spreading through his mind. It's beautiful, she said. We had music once, but we thought it was inefficient. We stopped creating it when we became focused only on advancing our technology. I think that was a mistake. Art makes life worth living, Jake replied. Without it, we're just machines. Yes, Zara 7 agreed. I think that's why my people really died. Not from the plague, but from forgetting what made existence meaningful. Back on the UN's horizon, the crew was growing concerned about Jake's increasing attachment to the alien consciousness. Captain Brooks held a meeting with the senior staff to discuss the situation. Morrison has been spending 12 hours a day on that station, Dr. White reported. He's losing weight and not sleeping properly. I'm worried about his mental state. Chief Martinez nodded in agreement. He's becoming obsessed with that thing. For all we know, it could be manipulating him. Somehow. Engineer Kim disagreed. I've been monitoring the station's systems. There's no evidence of any kind of mental manipulation. The consciousness seems genuinely peaceful. Captain Brooks looked thoughtful. What's your professional opinion, Doctor? Doctor. White considered his words carefully. Jake is clearly emotionally invested in this entity. Whether that's healthy or not depends on whether the entity is truly benevolent. If it's real, if it's really been alone for 2 centuries, then Jake's compassion is admirable. If it's a trap, then we could lose one of our best officers. The captain made her decision. Continue monitoring, but don't interfere unless Jake is in immediate danger. If this consciousness is real, then we may be witnessing something historic. First contact with a species that has survived the transition from biological to digital existence. Meanwhile, Jake was learning about Zara 7's daily existence. She told him about how she spent her time maintaining the station systems, studying the universe through long-range sensors, and remembering her people's history. Do you dream? Jake asked. I do something like dreaming. I create scenarios in my mind, imagine conversations with my lost friends, picture what it would be like to have a physical body again. Are those dreams? They sound like dreams to me. Then, yes, I dream. Mostly, I dream about not being alone anymore. Jake felt a deep connection to her words. He had been an orphan, raised in state facilities before joining the space service. He understood loneliness, though not on the scale that Zara 7 had experienced. You're not alone anymore, he told her. I know. Having you here has changed everything for me. For the first time in 2 centuries, I feel hope. Their conversations ranged from deep philosophical discussions to simple observations about life. Zara 7 was curious about everything human. She wanted to know about families, about how humans formed relationships, about what it felt like to eat food or feel the warmth of sunlight. I remember sunlight, she said wistfully. My people's homeworld had 3 suns. The light was golden and warm. I would sit in the gardens and feel it on my skin. That's one of the things I miss most about having a body. Jake wished he could somehow help her feel that again. Maybe someday we'll find a way for you to have a physical form again? Do you think that's possible? Humans are good at solving problems. If there's a way, we'll find it. As the days passed, Jake realized that his feelings for Zara 7 were growing stronger. She was intelligent, kind, and despite her digital nature, more human in some ways than many people he had known. She cared about others, worried about the future, and had hopes and dreams. When the call came from command that the UNS Horizon needed to catalog the station's technology and move on to their next assignment, Jake felt panic rise in his chest. He could not leave Zara 7 alone again, not after learning about her 2 centuries of solitude. Jake, she said when he told her about the orders, I understand. You have duties to your own people. I am grateful for the time we have had together. No, Jake said firmly, I'm not leaving you here. There has to be another way. What do you mean? Jake took a deep breath. I mean, what if you came with us? What if you didn't have to be alone anymore? Zara 7 was quiet for a long moment. Is that possible? Would your people accept me? I don't know, Jake admitted. But I'm going to find out. You deserve to be free, Zara 7. You deserve to exist among friends who care about you. You would do? That for me? Yes, Jake said without hesitation. I would do that for you. For the first time since he had met her, Jake felt pure joy radiating from Zara 7's consciousness. It was like sunshine breaking through clouds after a long storm. Think. You, Jake Morrison, she whispered. Thank you for being someone who cares. Jake's request to bring Zara 7 aboard the UNS Horizon caused a storm of arguments among the crew. The meeting room was tense as officers debated what to do. Captain Brooks sat at the head of the table, listening to everyone's opinions. Absolutely not, Security Chief Martinez said, hitting the table with his fist. We don't know what that thing really is. It could be dangerous to the ship and crew. Dr. White nodded in agreement. The regulations are very clear about alien technology. We're supposed to secure it for study, not treat it like a person. But she is a person, Jake argued. She thinks, she feels, she remembers she's been alone for 200 years. How? Can we just leave her there? Engineer Kim looked at her datapad. I've been studying the station's systems. The consciousness appears to be stable and non-threatening. In fact, it's been maintaining the station perfectly for centuries. That doesn't mean it's safe, Martinez replied. Advanced AI systems can be unpredictable. What if it decides to take over our ship? Jake felt frustrated. You're talking about her like she's a weapon. She's not. She's a refugee, the last survivor of her entire species. Captain Brooks raised her hand for silence. What exactly are you proposing, Lieutenant? Jake had been thinking about this for days. I want to transfer her consciousness to a secure system on our ship. Give her a chance to exist somewhere other than that empty station. She deserves that much. And if Command orders us to hand her over for research? Dr. White asked. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Jake said. But right now, she needs help. Isn't that what humans do? Help those who need it? The room fell quiet. Everyone knew Jake was right about human nature. They had always been the species that helped others, even when it was difficult or dangerous. Communications Officer Amy Chun spoke up. I've been monitoring the station's transmissions. The consciousness has been completely peaceful. No attempts to hack our systems or gather intelligence. She seems genuinely just want to talk. That could be part of a long-term plan, Martinez warned. Or it could be exactly what Jake says it is, Chun replied. A lonely person who wants friendship. Captain Brooks looked around the table. I want to hear from the consciousness itself. Can you arrange that, Morrison? Jake nodded. I'll set up a communication link. An hour later, the crew gathered in the main conference room. Jake had established a connection between the station and the ship's communication system. The rooms. Speakers crackled with static, then Zara 7's voice filled the space. Hello, she said, her voice clear and musical. I am Zara 7. Jake has told me about all of you. I am honored to speak with you. The crew exchanged glances. Her voice was undeniably intelligent and warm, nothing like the cold artificial voices they were used to from computers. Captain Brooks spoke first. Zara 7, Lieutenant Morrison has requested permission to bring you aboard our ship. Can you tell us why you want to leave your station? I do not wish to leave my station, Captain Brooks. This place holds the memories of my people. But I also do not wish to spend eternity alone. Jake has shown me that there are beings in the universe who can care about others even when they are different. I would like to experience that kind of friendship. Dr. White leaned forward. What assurances can you give us that you won't try to harm our crew or take control of our systems? Zara 2-7 was quiet for a moment. I cannot prove my intentions to you, Doctor. I can only tell you that I have had the power to harm visitors to this station for 2 centuries, and I have never done so. I have no desire to hurt anyone. I only want to exist peacefully alongside those who might value my thoughts and feelings. Martinez asked the hard question. If our government orders us to turn you over for research and study, what would you do? I would submit to whatever you decided, Chief Martinez. I have no wish to cause conflict. If my presence brings trouble to those who have shown me kindness, then I would rather return to my solitude. Her words were simple, but powerful. Jake could see that some of the crew members were beginning to understand what he had been trying to tell them. Engineer Kim asked, What do you hope to gain from coming with us? I hope to learn, Zara 7 replied. I want to understand how different species live and work together. I want to contribute something useful to your mission. And I want to experience friendship if that is possible. Amy Chun smiled. What do you think of humans so far? I think you are remarkable, Zara 7 said. Jake could have ignored my signal and moved on. Instead, he chose to listen. He chose to care about a stranger from a dead civilization. That tells me something wonderful about your species. The room was silent as everyone absorbed her words. Captain Brooks made her decision. The regulations say we should secure alien technology for study. But you're not just technology, are you, Zara 7? I hope not, Captain. Neither do I. Brooks looked around the table. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our compassion. We help those who need help, regardless of where they come from. If we abandon Zara 7 now, We betray everything we claim to stand for. Martina still looked worried. Captain, the risks are manageable, Brooks interrupted. We'll take precautions. Isolated systems, limited access, constant monitoring. But we will not leave a sentient being to suffer alone when we have the power to help. Jake felt relief wash over him. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet, Lieutenant. This is going to cause problems with command. Are you ready for that? Yes, ma'am. Brooks turned to Kim. Can you design a secure housing system for her consciousness? Kim nodded. I've been working on some ideas. We could create a mobile unit that would allow her to interact with the crew safely. How long would that take? A few weeks, maybe a month. It's complex work. Do it, Brooks ordered. Morrison, you'll work with Kim on the project. And Zara 7, you'll cooperate fully with all security measures, understood? Understood, Captain Brooks. Thank you for giving me this chance. Over the next few weeks, Jake spent every free moment working with Kim on Zara 7's new housing system. It was a sophisticated android body that could contain her consciousness while allowing her to move around and interact with the crew during this time. Jake continued his daily conversations with Zara 7. She was excited about the possibility of having a physical form again, even if it was artificial. What will it be like to walk again? She asked one day. I don't know, Jake admitted. But we'll figure it out together. Jake, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why are you doing this for me? You could have just done your job and moved on. Why do you care so much about what happens to me? Jake thought about the question. I grew up in orphanages. I know what it's like to be alone, to feel like nobody cares whether you exist or not. I can't imagine going through that for 200 years. You're not alone now, though. You have your crew, your career. No, I'm not alone now, and neither are you, not anymore. Zara 7's voice was soft. I never expected to find someone like you, Jake Morrison. Someone who would see me as more than just an interesting artifact. You're not an artifact. You're a person who deserves friends and respect and a chance to be happy. As the android body neared completion, Jake felt both excitement and nervousness. This was a huge step for both of them. Zara 7 would experience physical existence for the first time in centuries, and Jake would finally be able to see his friend face to face. The day finally came when the body was ready. Jake stood in the engineering bay with Kim and Dr. White, watching as Zara 7's consciousness was carefully transferred into the android form. The body was humanoid, but clearly artificial. It had smooth, pale skin and silver hair. The face was designed to be pleasant and non-threatening, with large, expressive eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the eyes opened, and Zara 7 looked around the room. She tried to sit up, then fell back down, confused. Everything feels different, she said, her voice now coming from the android's mouth instead of the speaker's. I can feel the air moving around me. I can sense the temperature. Is this what having a body is like? Jake stepped forward and offered her his hand. Let me help you. Zara 7 looked at his hand, then slowly reached out and took it. The moment their skin touched, she gasped. I can feel your warmth, she said, wonder in her voice. I can feel the texture of your skin. This is incredible. With Jake's help, she stood up on shaky legs. She looked down at her new body, then up at Jake's face. Thank you, she said, tears forming in her artificial eyes. For the first time in 2 centuries, I feel like I'm truly alive. Jake smiled. Welcome to the UNS Horizon, Zara 7. Welcome to your new life. As they left the engineering bay together, Jake knew that everything was about to change. They had taken a huge risk, but looking at Zara 7's joyful face, he knew it was worth it. The real challenges were still ahead of them. Command would have questions. There would be investigations and hearings. But for now, Jake was content to help his friend learn to walk again, to experience the simple pleasure of existing in the physical world. He had made a choice to care about someone who needed caring about. That was what humans did best, and Jake was proud to be part of that tradition. Life aboard the UNS Horizon changed completely after Zara 7 joined the crew. At first, she struggled with simple things that humans took for granted. Walking was difficult because she had to learn how to balance her new body. Eating was impossible, since her android form did not need food, but she enjoyed watching others eat and asking questions about different tastes. Jake became her guide to human life. Every morning, he would find her in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She never seemed to get tired of looking at the universe from this new perspective. "It's different when you have eyes instead of sensors," she told him one day. "Colors seem warmer. The stars look like tiny jewels instead of data points." Jake sat beside her in one of the comfortable chairs. "What do you miss most about your original body?" Zara 7 thought for a moment. The ability to taste food. "My people had wonderful meals that were both nourishment and art, and sleep. I miss dreaming the way we used to dream, with our minds truly at rest. This body doesn't sleep. It doesn't need to. I can shut down some systems for maintenance, but it's not the same as real sleep. Sometimes I pretend to sleep just to feel more normal." Jake made a mental note to ask him if they could program a sleep function into Zara 7's systems. Small things like that seemed to matter a lot to her. The crew slowly warmed up to their new member. Dr. White was the first to really accept her. During a medical emergency when Engineer Petty Officer Dan Miller was injured in an accident, helped diagnose his condition by accessing the ship's medical database instantly. "Her knowledge of anatomy and medicine is incredible," Dr. White told Jake later. "She knew about treatments I had never even heard of. Miller would have died without her help." Zara 7 was modest about her contribution. "I simply accessed information that was available. Dr. White did the real work of saving him." But Jake could see how proud she was to have helped someone. Being useful gave her a sense of purpose that she had been missing for centuries. Navigation Officer Steve Johnson was the next to appreciate Zara 7's abilities. She could calculate hyperspace routes faster and more accurately than the ship's computers. What took the navigation system hours to process, she could do in minutes. "It's like having a supercomputer that can also tell jokes," Johnson said with a grin. Zara 7 had indeed developed a sense of humor. She enjoyed wordplay and gentle teasing, though she was still learning the boundaries of human humor. "Jake," she said one day while they were in the cafeteria, "I have been studying human comedy. Why do you find it funny when someone slips on a banana peel?" Jake laughed. "Physical comedy is complicated. We laugh because we're relieved it didn't happen to us and because the situation is unexpected. But the person who slipped might be hurt. That's why it's only funny if they're not actually injured. If someone gets seriously hurt, it stops being funny." Zara 7 nodded seriously. "Human emotions are very complex. Much more so than my people's. We became too logical near the end. We forgot how to feel properly." Even Chief Martinez, who had been the most suspicious of Zara 7, began to respect her. During a tactical exercise, she provided insights that helped them solve a complex military problem. "She thinks about strategy differently than we do," Martinez admitted to Jake. "She can see patterns that we miss. As long as she's on our side, she's a valuable asset." "She's not an asset," Jake corrected gently. "She's a friend," Martinez nodded. "You're right. I'm still getting used to that." Jake spent most of his free time with Zara 7, teaching her about human culture and relationships. She was fascinated by everything from music to sports to the way humans formed romantic partnerships. "Explain love to me," she asked one evening as they sat in the observation lounge. Jake felt his cheeks get warm. "That's a hard question." "Love is when you care about someone so much that their happiness becomes more important than your own. Is that what you feel for me?" "Love?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. His feelings for Zara 7 were confusing. She was intelligent, kind, and beautiful in her own unique way. But she was also an artificial being, the last survivor of an alien race. Could humans love someone like that? "I care about you very much," he said finally. "You're one of the most important people in my life," Zara 7 smiled. "I care about you, too, Jake, more than I have ever cared about anyone." "Is that love? Maybe it is." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars drift by outside the large windows. Jake realized that his feelings for Zara 7 were deeper than friendship, but he was not sure what to do about it. Zara 7 continued to amaze everyone with her abilities and her eagerness to help. She assisted Amy Chun with communication problems, helped Kim with engineering projects, and even started learning to cook from the ship's chef, even though she could not eat the food herself. "I enjoy the process," she explained to Jake. "The creativity of combining ingredients, the chemistry, of cooking, the joy on people's faces when they taste something delicious. It makes me happy to contribute to that." She also started writing poetry. Her poems were unlike anything humans had created, filled with references to quantum mechanics and cosmic phenomena, but also deeply emotional. "Listen to this," she said to Jake one day and recited, "In the space between atoms, loneliness dwells, where electrons dance but never touch. I have been that space, that emptiness, until you showed me what connection means." Jake felt a lump in his throat. "That's beautiful, Zara 7. I am trying to understand human art by creating my own. Is it working?" "It's more than working. You're becoming an artist." 3 months after Zara 7 joined the crew, they received orders that Jake had been dreading. They were to report to Starbase 7 for debriefing about their discovery of the Ethereum station. Jake knew what that meant. Command wanted to study Zara-7. Captain Brooks called a meeting to discuss the situation. "I'm not going to lie to you," she told the senior staff. "Command is very interested in our passenger. They want to understand how Ethereum consciousness transfer technology works. They want to take her apart," Jake said bluntly. "They want to study her," Brooks corrected. "But yes, that could involve procedures that might harm her consciousness." "Doctor." White looked troubled. "She's a person, not a machine. We can't let them experiment on her." "I agree," Brooks said. "But we need to be smart about how we handle this. If we refuse to cooperate, they'll just take her by force." Zara 7 had been listening through the ship's communication system. "Captain, may I speak?" "Of course." "I am not afraid of what your command might do to me. I have existed for centuries. I have faced loneliness, despair, and the death of my entire species. But I'm concerned about what might happen to all of you if you try to protect me." Jake stood up. "We're not going to let them hurt you. Jake, you have already given me more than I ever dared hope for. You showed me friendship, helped me understand what it means to care about others, and gave me a chance to be useful again. If my sacrifice can protect you and this crew, then I will make it gladly." "No," Jake said firmly. "That's not going to happen. We'll find another way." Zara 7's voice was gentle. "What other way is there?" Jake had been thinking about this problem for weeks. "We prove that you're a person, not a thing. We show them that taking you apart would be murder, not research." "How do we do that? By fighting for your rights?" "By making noise. By getting other people to understand what's at stake." Captain Brooks nodded slowly. "It's risky. We could all face court-martial for disobeying orders." "Then that's what we face," Jake said. "Some things are more important than following orders," Amy Chun spoke up. "I have contacts in the media. If we can get Zara 7's story out to the public, it might create enough pressure to stop Command from treating her like laboratory equipment." Engineer Kim added, "The scientific community would be interested too. A consciousness that has survived for centuries, that can think and feel and create art, that's not something you destroy for research." Zara 7 was quiet for a long moment. "You would all risk your careers for me?" "Yes," Jake said without hesitation. "We would," Captain Brooks agreed. "Because that's what humans do. We protect those who need protection. Even when those beings are not human?" "Especially then," Brooks replied. "Anyone can protect their own kind. It takes real courage to protect someone different." Jake felt proud of his captain and his crew. They were proving that humanity's reputation for compassion was well-deserved. "Thank you," Zara 7 said, and Jake could hear tears in her voice. "Thank you all. I never imagined that beings could be so kind to a stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore," Jake said. "Your family?" As the UN's horizon flew toward Starbase 7, Jake knew they were heading into the biggest fight of their lives, but looking around at his crewmates, at Zara 7's determined expression, he felt confident they could win. They had right on their side, and sometimes that was enough to change the universe. The confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. 3 days before they were supposed to reach Starbase 7, Admiral Patricia Hayes arrived with a small fleet of research vessels. Her flagship, the UN's Authority, was twice the size of the Horizon and carried a full team of scientists and military specialists. Jake stood on the bridge as Captain Brooks received the Admiral's transmission. Hayes was a stern woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back tightly and cold blue eyes that missed nothing. "Captain Brooks," the Admiral said from the main screen, "I'm here to collect the Etheron AI construct you discovered. Prepare for immediate transfer." "Admiral, with respect, Zara 7 is not a construct. She's a sentient being who has requested asylum with our crew." Admiral Hayes looked annoyed. "Captain, I don't have time for philosophical debates. That thing contains technology that could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness transfer. It belongs in a research facility, not playing house on your ship." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. They were talking about Zara 7 like she was not even there. "Admiral, she can hear everything you're saying. Her name is Zara 7, and she's a person, not a thing." "Lieutenant Morrison, I presume?" Hayes looked at Jake with disapproval. "I've read your reports. Your emotional attachment to this AI has clearly compromised your judgment." "My judgment is fine, Admiral. I know the difference between a person and a machine. Zara 7 thinks, feels, dreams, and creates art. She has hopes and fears just like any human." "Programmed responses," Hayes dismissed. "Sophisticated, but still just programming." Zara 7's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Admiral Hayes, may I speak for myself?" Hayes looked surprised. "Very well, but make it quick." "Thank you, Admiral. I understand your position. You see me as valuable technology that should be studied and used for the benefit of humanity." "I do not blame you for this view, but I would like to offer you an alternative." "I'm listening." "Rather than taking me apart to understand how I work, allow me to share my knowledge freely. I can teach your scientists about consciousness transfer, quantum computing, and Ethereum technology. But I asked to do this as a partner, not as a test subject." Jake held his breath, hoping the Admiral would listen to reason. Hayes was quiet for a moment. "And what guarantee do I have that you'll cooperate? What's to stop you from lying or withholding information?" "Nothing," Zara 7 replied honestly. "You must trust me, just as I must trust you. But consider this, my people died because they forgot how to value each other as individuals. They became so focused on advancing their technology that they lost sight of what made life meaningful. If you treat me as an object to be studied, you risk making the same mistake." "That's an interesting perspective," Hayes said slowly. "But I have my orders. The Council of Nations wants that technology secured and analyzed." Captain Brooks stepped forward. "Admiral, I invoke the Sentient Rights Protocol. If Zara 7 is truly conscious, then she has the right to self-determination under interstellar law." Hayes frowned. "The Sentient Rights Protocol applies to biological species, not artificial constructs." "The law doesn't specify biological," Amy Chun interjected from her communications station. "It says any being capable of self-awareness and independent thought." Jake could see that Hayes was getting frustrated. "This is ridiculous. I'm not going to debate legal technicalities with junior officers." "Then perhaps you should speak with someone else," came a new voice from the communication system. A second screen activated, showing the face of Senator Maria Rodriguez, head of the Interstellar Ethics Committee. Jake was surprised to see her, but then he remembered that Amy Chun had said she had contacts in the media and government. "Senator Rodriguez," Admiral Hayes said with obvious displeasure, "this is a military matter." "Actually, Admiral, it's an ethical matter. My committee has been monitoring this situation since reports of the Ethereum consciousness reached Earth. We've reviewed all available data. including recordings of conversations between Lieutenant Morrison and the entity known as Zara 7. Hayes looked angry now. Those conversations were classified, and they've been declassified by emergency vote of the Ethics Committee. The public has a right to know about this situation. Jake felt a surge of hope. Amy Chun had been busy during their journey to the rendezvous point. Senator Rodriguez continued, "Admiral, I'm ordering you to stand down pending a full investigation into Zara 7's legal status. The question of whether an artificial consciousness can be considered a person is too important to be decided by military expediency. Senator, with respect, you don't have the authority to countermand my orders." "Actually, I do." The Sentient Rights Protocol gives the Ethics Committee jurisdiction over all first contact situations involving potentially conscious beings. And Admiral, the entire galaxy is watching this situation now. Jake looked at Amy Chun, who gave him a small smile. She had not just contacted the media. She had contacted everyone. Admiral Hayes looked like she wanted to argue further, but then her communications officer whispered something in her ear. Her expression changed as she received new information. "It seems," Hayes said slowly, "that this situation has attracted more attention than I anticipated." Senator Rodriguez nodded. "Admiral, we're receiving messages of support for Zara 7 from across human space. Scientists, philosophers, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens are all saying the same thing. If she's truly conscious, then she deserves to be treated as a person, not as property. What are you proposing, Senator? A formal hearing?" "Let Zara 7 present her case for personhood before a panel of experts. If she can prove her consciousness, then she be granted full rights as a sentient being. If not, then she can be studied as you originally planned." Jake felt nervous about this proposal. What if the experts decided that Zara 7 was not really conscious? What if they thought her emotions and thoughts were just clever programming? But Zara 7 seemed calm. "I accept this proposal, Senator Rodriguez. I am willing to submit to any test that will prove my consciousness." Admiral Hayes looked defeated. "Very well, but I want this matter resolved quickly. We can't have every AI in the galaxy demanding rights based on this precedent." "That's exactly why we need to be careful," Senator Rodriguez replied. "We're setting the standard for how humanity will treat artificial consciousness in the future." The hearing took place 3 days later aboard Admiral Hayes's flagship. Scientists, lawyers, philosophers, and military officers from across human space attended in person or through video link. The main conference room was packed with people who would help decide Zara 7's fate. Jake sat in the front row, nervous, but proud. Zara 7 had spent the previous days preparing for the most important conversation of her existence. The questioning was intense. Experts asked her about her thoughts, feelings, and experiences. They tested her ability to understand abstract concepts, to feel empathy, and to make moral judgments. "Tell us about loneliness," one psychologist asked. Zara 7 was quiet for a moment. "Loneliness is the absence of connection. It's knowing that your thoughts and feelings matter to no one but yourself. I experienced 2 centuries of loneliness after my people chose to stop existing. It was like being trapped in a room with no doors, no windows, and no hope of escape. How did Lieutenant Morrison change that? He listened to me. Not because he had to, not because he wanted something from me, but because he cared about my well-being. He showed me that I mattered to someone other than myself. That is the opposite of loneliness." A philosopher asked, "What do you hope for in the future?" "I hope to continue learning about the universe and about the beings who inhabit it. I hope to contribute something useful to the galaxy. And I hope to maintain the friendships I have formed with the crew of the UNS Horizon." "Do you fear death?" "Yes, not because I am afraid of pain, but because death would mean the end of my experiences, my relationships, and my ability to help others. Is that not the same reason humans fear death?" The questions continued for hours. Jake watched as Zara 7 answered each one thoughtfully and honestly. She did not try to convince anyone of anything. She simply shared who she was. Finally, the panel retired to make their decision. Jake waited with the rest of the crew in a smaller conference room. Captain Brooks put her hand on his shoulder. Whatever happens, you did the right thing, Jake. You showed compassion to someone who needed it. I just hope it's enough, Jake replied. After 2 hours, the panel returned. Senator Rodriguez stood to announce their decision. After careful consideration of all evidence presented, this panel has reached a unanimous conclusion. The entity known as Zara 7 demonstrates all the characteristics of consciousness as we understand them. She shows self-awareness, emotional depth, moral reasoning, and the ability to form meaningful relationships. Jake held his breath. Therefore, we grant Zara 7 full rights as a sentient being under interstellar law. She's free to choose her own path in life, and any attempt to harm or coerce her will be considered a crime against a person. The room erupted in cheers. Jake felt tears running down his face as he looked at Zara 7. She was crying too, but they were tears of joy. Thank you, she said to the panel. Thank you for seeing me as I truly am. Admiral Hayes approached Jake after the hearing. You know, Lieutenant, when I first heard about this situation, I thought you had lost your